Today, our agenda, we will be going over a brief summary of the GW holiday policy and TRS schedule and holiday demonstration. Um, we're going to go over employee with no assigned schedule, holiday populates to 0, employee swaps days and takes the holiday the day before. We're going to go over using a Gantt view to review the schedule, employees that are not in paid status after the holiday, employee that has an invalid pattern causing the holiday to populate to 0. Employee did not work on their scheduled day before the holiday. Employee worked on the holiday. So an employee that has a 3-week rotation, but we only see a single pattern, and maybe how to fix that. And again, all of this has to do with holidays populating as 0, which become a problem and extra work for you, or even time off requests populating a 0, and that becomes a work for the employee and for the manager slash timekeeper. Next slide. So wait 1 second though. I thought there was a timekeeper. So for just housekeeping purposes, if anyone's, I think everyone is on mute, but keep yourself on mute. If you're going to ask questions, you can ask questions in the chat box, and we have people looking at it to answer your questions. And then in between each employee test that I go through, I'll stop and we'll double check the questions. And then at the end, I will stay on and you can take yourself off of mute and then ask any additional questions that you want. Be happy to answer them. Okay, go ahead, Kim.
Thanks, Sandra. Good morning, everybody. So I'm just going to briefly go over the university's holiday policy over the next few slides. So for most full-time staff, they are eligible for 8 hours of holiday time on each university holiday. Part-time staff are eligible for prorated holiday hours as outlined in the time off and leave guide on the benefits website. We'll put a link in the chat to that when we can get to that. In order to be eligible for a holiday, the staff member must be in paid status the scheduled work days before and after the holiday. So paid status means pay that is processed through GW payroll, like regular hours worked or vacation time. Paid status does not include pay types like workers' comp, which is paid by an outside vendor. So for example, say an employee works Monday through Friday. If a holiday falls on a Monday, the employee must be in paid status both the Friday before the holiday and the Tuesday following the holiday to be eligible for the holiday pay. Next slide, please. So timekeepers should review all time cards to ensure that holidays and time off are entered properly. For instance, this time card is incorrect because there are 8 hours of holiday pay as well as 8 hours of vacation time on the holiday. This would cause an overpayment of 8 hours if the time card was approved like this. Therefore, the vacation time should be canceled via the normal time off request process, not directly from the time card, to avoid an overpayment. So the employee can cancel their time off request, which will require the manager to approve the cancellation before the time gets removed from the time card. If needed, managers or timekeepers can cancel the time off requests for the employee on the schedule page. We have a tip sheet posted on the TRS website that shows step-by-step instructions on how to cancel time off on behalf of an employee. We'll paste the link in the chat to the tip sheets. All the time off request tip sheets are under the time off tools and training tab on the TRS website. So timekeepers should also review time cards to ensure they reflect the correct number of holiday hours. If a non-exempt employee clocks in on a holiday, the preloaded holiday hours will be deleted from the time card. So if the employee only worked a partial day, the rest of the holiday hours need to be re-entered on the time card. Otherwise, the employee will be underpaid. So if the employee does work on a holiday, they are entitled to a substitute day off. This substitute day off must be used by the end of the fiscal year and is tracked in the department by the manager and the employee. It's not tracked in the TRS. If a non-exempt employee is not able to take their substitute day off before the end of the fiscal year, The manager or timekeeper will need to submit those hours to payroll for payout. Note that exempt employees aren't paid out any substitute days that they earn, so they need to take those in a timely manner. All non-exempt biweekly employees are required to have an assigned schedule in the TRS. If there is no schedule assigned, the TRS will assign 0 hours to both time off requests and holidays on the time card. Once the schedule is assigned, any time off requests that were negatively affected will need to be canceled and resubmitted. However, holidays will be repopulated automatically after the schedule is corrected. Zender will do a demo on how to update schedules later on. Another rule is that if an employee is leaving the university, they cannot use vacation time on their last scheduled working day unless they're also on job protected leave like FMLA, nor can the last working day fall on a holiday unless they are regularly scheduled to work on the holiday or again, if they are also on FMLA. And then finally, the TRS automatically enters 4 hours of holiday pay for part-time employees on their time cards. If the part-time employee does not have a 50% FTE, the timekeeper needs to adjust the time card to reflect the correct number of holiday hours as outlined in the time off and leave guide on the benefits website. We do send out a reminder on how to adjust these hours around every pay period that has a holiday. So for further details on holiday and time off policy in the time off and leave guide. You can review it on our website. I'll post that in the chat. And then I'll take a pause here to see if there are any questions on any policy items that I briefly went over. Okay, if there are no questions, I'll go ahead and pass it back over to Zendra to do the live demos.
Thank you, Kim. Okay. You see my screen, everybody? Kim?
Yep, I can see it.
Okay, perfect. So some of the links that we've put out on the chat for you, they are also, you should see a tile on your workspace and you'll see them there. So you've got the TRS compliance policy link. You even have employee training, like when you hire employees, they can go out here and they also have this own info link box that they have some links and they would see this also. There's the GW reporting page that we posted out in chat for you. So some of the more important information in the time off and leave guide you can find right there. And if it's not on there, you should be able to add it. You click the pencil and you can add it, but it should be somewhere on your screen. Um, so now we're going to go over an example from our agenda of maybe each little thing we could think of why a holiday would not populate. So I'm going to go into my list of employees and we're going to go through each one at a time. So to get to them, I'm going to use a manager tile box and it's going to bring up my list of employees and I'm logged on as George Washington as the manager. Okay. And the first thing I'm going to do is open the time card for Anne Green and review her time card so you can see what it looks like. And if no one's ever did this before, you can click on their name, right click over it, and we're going to go to, and you can go to the schedule from here, the time card. In this case, we're going to first go to the time card to see what it looks like. And just overall, like what is this training for? So on the new system, on the old system, if anyone was around the old system, I realized sometimes we had an issue with holidays and sometimes they wouldn't populate and there was a lot of other reasons. But nowadays on the new system, if the holiday doesn't populate, there's a reason. Okay, so on the new system, we require work schedules for all benefited employees, and those work schedules will help populate time off, okay, and holidays. So 99% of the time, if the holiday doesn't populate, there's a reason. Okay, so manually adding the holiday could cause an issue in the long run. And in some cases, the reason the holiday didn't populate could be because they really didn't earn it. Okay. So here for Anne, here's her working schedule. If I'm visually looking at it, I can see that she worked, she's in paid status. She clocked in and out on Thursday, 7/17. So why didn't the holiday populate? Sometimes the holiday will show up, in this case, at the end of the biweekly, right? Or sometimes it will be Monday, right? The very start of the biweekly, and that can be common, including Mondays. We have a lot of Monday holidays, and we've very rarely have them mid-break, which would be mid-biweekly. So in that case, when you're looking at it and you see 0 and the previous biweekly looks okay, then we're going to flip to the current pay period. Okay, because you have to be in paid status before and after the holiday to earn it. Now we see that Anne did not clock in and out on Monday. So either they forgot and you can ask the employee, but we're also going to check, without having to contact them, did they request time off? And that's why they didn't clock in and out. So from here, I'm going to select the go to and I'm going to go to schedule. And we're going to see if Anne has a time off request. Okay. So I'm going to click on the block, the first week of the block, 7/20 to 7/26, and I see a time off request. So I'm going to right click on it and I'm going to select approve. Now, again, if you're the timekeeper and not the manager and you want to ask the manager for approval to do this, right? But the manager or timekeeper have access to approve the time off request. So now it's approved. So I'm going to right click back over Anne's name and I'm going to go to back to the time card. So now we see that the sick leave request has been submitted and inputted for Monday. So I'm going to go back to the previous pay period. And refresh. And of course, it's not working, guys. Let's see. And it should populate the holiday. Oh, that was my mistake. Okay. This is my mistake. So it shows that they weren't scheduled for Monday. So I'm going to go out of schedule. Sorry for my bad test. Just think she was supposed to be scheduled for Monday. And as you see me just clicking on the field and typing, this is as easy as it can be sometimes. If an employee changed the schedule, you can just go to the schedule and add a day or delete a day. Okay. And sometimes that's what needs to be done if it's not a permanent change, but just a temporary change. And I'm assuming that can absolutely happen around the holidays. Shift swaps, or different arrangements to work different days around a holiday. And you may not want to go permanently change the pattern. So now Anne has the holiday. Okay. So in this example, if I had slightly tested it right, the person should have been the person theoretically in my mind was scheduled to work on Monday, but they had not they had requested time off, but it wasn't submitted, so it was causing the holiday to be 0. So we went to the current pay period and double checked. We went to the scheduler, we added vacation, make sure the schedule's in there, right? It really goes by what day does it say that employee worked per their schedule, and did they work those days before and after the holiday? And that's what it's using to populate that holiday. So now when we go back to previous pay period again, we see that it's there. So that's our first example with Anne and holiday not populating. Now we're going to go to Arthur Chester. But before I go to Arthur, are there any questions in the chat?
Not yet.
Okay. Sorry, it's a bit slow to load. So for Chester, he is an employee that is not scheduled correctly, but the holiday, it looks like he's scheduled correctly, but the holiday did not populate. So I'm gonna sort by name. I added letters in front of them so they sort correctly. So we're gonna go to Chester. So we go to Chester and we go to the holiday. It doesn't populate at 0. But again, per Chester's schedule, he worked on Thursday. So I'm sorry, Arthur Chester's, why is it not populating? So we're going to go to the current pay period and you double check to see if they were in paid status per their schedule, and they are. So I'm going to go back to the previous pay period and I'm going to just go into the schedule and double check it. So I'm going to go to the schedule. So go to schedule. And usually by default, it's table view. And what I mean by that is it looks like little bars in the time. But I'm going to switch it. Right here it says Gantt view to Gantt view. And Gantt view is going to show me a bar, like you see this purple bar with a wide range that kind of represents the length of the shift. And when I look at Thursday, I see a very long shift. And this is actually a real person. I covered their name up, but it looks like their schedule had been inputted in the wrong time, and the timekeeper has been going in every holiday and manually entering it in, which causes work. So if you're always having to do that, I suggest some of these tips. That's why we're going over, and double check that schedule. And for this type of issue, I'm going to say that the Gantt view is more helpful, because you look at it and you'll be like, why is this is not compared to these are hour? What is this, right? So when you really look at it, it says 6 o'clock p.m. to 2:30 p.m. So it's giving you a 20.30 hour shift into the next day. So it was just a spelling mistake, right? So in this case, we would have to edit the pattern to correct this, and then it will automatically start populating the holiday correctly for every holiday. So we're going to right click over Arthur's name and we're going to go to schedule pattern. So he has a schedule, but we need to create a new one. You can't edit the one that's in here. So we're going to go to add a pattern, and I'm going to click, you just can name it anything. You can leave it blank, but there's only so many you can have this say add new pattern. And sometimes it can be helpful. So I'm going to do Monday through Friday, 2:30 to 6:30 A to 2:30 P. There's multiple ways you can put time in these blocks. You can select the shift template and you can add it, right? If you can find the time. If there's a time that you use all the time and you can't find it, let me know. I'm happy to add it for you. 6:30 to 2:30 P. If you were able to select a shift template, there's one there, then you can just actually click on each box and add it. Okay. Your other option, I'm going to click this to turn that cursor off, is to manually type it in. So when you type in just a number, it will automatically put, like when I just do 6, it's going to do 6 a.m. It will always default to a.m. And then I'm going to select dash and I can do 2:30 and the letter P, tab, and it will populate. I entered in 3 instead of 2. Okay. So there's your new pattern. Now there is a little checkbox under here that says override other pattern. I'm going to select it, so it's going to override this and a start date of 7/6, and I'll hit apply. And that's how you can adjust a pattern or make a new one. Okay. So now when we go, we see that the Thursday looks normal. Make sure you hit save. And then we're going to go back to Arthur's time card. Now when we go back to Arthur's time card, we fix Thursday and it now registers that this person worked their shift um, for the hours that were scheduled and the holiday has populated. So there's that example. Any questions before we go to the next one?
No questions.
Okay. Now, when you're working with a lot of people, you can actually select all the employees and you could go into their time cards and go to the scheduler. I've been doing one at a time because I'm only editing one schedule at a time. So it's a little bit easier for me to make sure I'm not modifying other people, other tests while I'm trying to show you how to edit and modify for a certain, each one is a little bit different. So now we're going into Martin Van Buren. So I'm going to click on Martin and go into the time card. So Martin had a schedule he swapped days and is going to take the holiday on Thursday instead of working on Friday. Okay. Um Wrong person. There you go. Sorry. I'm gonna select it back because it picked up all the employees, and go back into Martin. Sorry about that. Okay. So he's scheduled for Thursday, but he's actually going to take the holiday on Thursday. So if this is temporary and not permanent, you can actually just right click over this and select edit if he changed the hours. Okay. And you actually can edit a schedule from here. This works more if the hours changed on that day. You could modify the hours in here so the shift matches up correctly, and then the holiday will populate. Sadly, if you need to delete it completely just for that day, then you do need to go to the scheduler. But there is a quick links button that is at the top of the menu bar. So you're going to see it right here. Looks like a little Thunderbolt inside the box, and I'm going to click on that, and it gives you some options. So I'm going to select 7/13 to 7/19, and what we need to do is we need to remove the shift day just for the 17th because the employee did a swap. So we're going to select the delete, and we're going to select the cell, and it automatically deletes it, and then save, and we're done. Okay. Now we're just going to go back to the time card, and you should now see that the holiday populates for Martin. There's the holiday. So it's easy as that. So if you don't need to change the schedule permanently, and you just need to the employee has just modified that week, you can modify just the shift time if needed by right clicking it right in the time card and selecting edit, or again by going into the schedule, and you can go to the actual cell. There's two ways to do it and hit delete, or you can do what I did and select the quick actions button again and select delete, and it will click it. And some of these options, if you've never seen them, actually do work, like swapping shifts, or you can do a whole bunch of people at once if you need to do it, including maybe around the holidays, and play around the schedule, and it makes it a little bit easy for you. It's pretty much a click and click each cell and it automatically updates it. Okay. Any questions? We only have a couple more short samples.
No questions yet.
Okay. So now we have John Calhoun that we're gonna go in, and he works a 3-week rotation, but when I look at his record, he only has a 1-week schedule, so, or pattern. So if that's the case where, let's say every 3 weeks, the employee may work different days. So let's say they work Saturday to Friday, and then a second week rotation, they work Monday to Sunday, and then they have a third week rotation. And or sometimes let's say the timekeeper went and put in just 1 week, the, the holiday won't populate correctly because the schedule wasn't correct that week. So there's a couple things that you can do depending on what the manager slash timekeeper feels best. So we're going to go into the time card again. The holiday is not going to populate. When I look at it as an admin, right, I just see this person is not in paid status, right? We do see that the employee clocked in on Saturday, 7/19, but there is no schedule there, right? So the problem is that even though they're in paid status, theoretically, visually looking at it, on Thursday and on Saturday, it's not populating that holiday because there's no schedule here. So you can go to the scheduler, and there's two things you can do. Mostly if the schedule is correct every single week, except for this one, even though they may have a rotation, you can go into the 7/13, 7/19 tab, and on that Saturday, actually, am I doing it right? 7/19, 7/18. Yep. You would put in the time they worked, right? You'd stick the schedule in manually. Now remember, by doing this, it's not gonna do it every biweekly, right? You're not permanently changing the pattern. But by doing this and hitting tab and hitting save, this would automatically populate the holiday. Okay. We'll go ahead and do it. And then when you go back to the time card, you should see the holiday. Because then UKG is TRS is saying, oh, now I see that they're per their work schedule, they're in paid status on Friday and Saturday, and the holiday populates. But let's say you wanted to actually make it so they did have a 3-week rotation. You would go back to the scheduler and right click over John's name into the schedule pattern to edit it. And like we did with the other employee, like I think it was the other employee, we'd have to modify the pattern. So we're going to do schedule, and you'd have to make a new pattern. Okay. And we don't need to fully go into it, but if I did 3-week rotation or whatever, right? Um, what you do is there's a number down here. It says define pattern. So if they have 1 week, you're going to change it to 3. And when you tab, it's going to show you 3 weeks. And then from the 3 weeks, you would just put in what they're going to work the first week, right? The hours and days they'll work the second week, and so on for the third week. Okay. Once you do that, again, you do your override and your apply, and then you'll notice that starting on the day you told it to start. So if you don't want it to start till next Monday or next Sunday, you put that date in the future to start. And then on that day that you told it to start, you'll see in the schedule, including if you go out the date range, you'd see that, let's say you put Sunday to Thursday, that's what we'll say for the first week. Then the second week, if you do Monday through Friday, that's what we'll do. So you can do alternating weeks if someone's on a rotation schedule. Any questions?
None in the chat.
Okay. It's either boring or no, it's okay.
You're just doing a great job,
Yeah,
Sandra.
right. Just great job, sure. And when you go to do this stuff, I know our next holiday is not until Labor Day. Um, give me a call, right? Or send me a message. I'm happy to help you when you actually need to do it. Or after this, if you go out and look at it and say, oh, I think I might have an issue and you want to ask me additional questions, I can even do a individual WebEx with you. I'm happy to do that. So now we're going to go to Woodrow Wilson, who's not scheduled to work on Friday. So I'm gonna go back out. And this is a simple one. Uh, so what happens if you're not scheduled to work on Friday, but you work on Friday? I mean, the holidays on Friday. So we're gonna go to Wilson Wildrow. And under the time and leave guide, the policy usually is, and Kim can correct me, that they can take the holiday an additional day and you remove it. Or I know in most cases, including with safety, that they just keep the holiday. The holiday does not count towards overtime because it's not work time, and they would get 88 hours. So you can do either or, but this would be the process. Do you want to make any comments, Kim?
No.
Okay. So that is that example. What happens if the holiday does not end up on a day that they work? And then our next one, and our last one is actually more for FT part-time employee. Well, and then we still have to go over holidays, right? 0. So I'm gonna go back to the list and I'm gonna go to William Wheeler. So if you have a part-time non-exempt employee has an FTE other than 50%, you'll probably have to manually adjust it. Part-time employees do populate with 4 hours. So let's say you have an employee with an FTE of 60%, so they have a 30-hour a week schedule. The holiday will populate with 4 hours, but they really should be given 2 additional holiday hours. So you do need to, at that point, the timekeeper needs to manually adjust it to give them 6 hours for that day. So I'm going to go into William Wheeler. And this one is somewhat normal, and we've had it on the old system too, so everyone might know this, but I'll show it just in case. I know we have some new timekeepers. So you'll see that it populates for 4 hours, but this employee is a 30-hour a week employee. And out in the time and leave guide, there is a chart that goes over an example of FTE and what they should get. And if you ever have any questions, you can email timeoff@jb.edu and they can help assist you if you're having problems understanding if they need adjustment. So you cannot put a pay code on the same line that there's an entry. So what you do is for Friday, we're going to hit the plus sign and it's going to create a blank line. And for here, we can do holiday. And while we ask you never to enter in vacation stuff manually, for the holiday pay code in this case is perfectly fine. And on your drop down list, you should see HOL. Why am I visually not seeing it? There it is. And we're going to add 2 hours. So that's going to update their daily total for holiday to 6 and hit save. And then that brings them up to their 60 hours that they should get for the biweekly. So that's an employee who's part-time. So our last one, do you have any questions?
No questions in the chat.
Okay. So the last one is what happens when someone populates a leave request with no schedule. So if William requested leave on 7/14, but there was no schedule, I'm going to remove it. I'm not logged on as him as Kim. Let me see. Can I request it for himself and visually see that it was populate as 0?
You would have to request it as like the timekeeper or the manager if you're not logged in as him. But you can still see, once it's approved, you'll be able to see the 0 populate. Use the time off one the one that's already grayed out, the one that's black, yeah, that's just leave that.
So I'm gonna request leave for the 14th when there's no schedule.
You'll have to click on the 13th too. It pop, yep, there you go.
Okay, so 7/14, we'll have it start at 8 o'clock. Duration,
Just do 8 hours if that's what
8
he's
hours.
taking the whole day off.
I like to review it just to make sure, like I accidentally almost selected 2 days, so make sure it says the day I want, Monday, 7/14, the time I want it to start, and then the duration, which is 8, and I'm gonna submit. I'm gonna select done. So I see it in here. Why did it automatically?
Oh, because you're in as the timekeeper or the manager, so it's gonna automatically approve. You're not as the
Okay, that's fine.
employee.
So
Yeah,
go to time card, and hopefully it's 0.
it showed it on the schedule. It was 0 too.
Okay. Okay. So this is what you would see when you come in. You're going to see vacation, sick, whatever they've accepted, and it's going to be 0. And the reason for that is that there's no schedule. So the only way to correct this, as Kim said in the beginning, is we're going to go back to the schedule, and you have 2 options. You can tell the employee to please go cancel this request, or the manager or timekeeper can cancel the request. For you to cancel the request as a manager or timekeeper, you can go back into the scheduler and cancel the request. But the only way to correct it afterwards, right, is then to actually put in um, the schedule. So managers cannot, if you're just a manager without timekeeper access, you can't update the schedule, but the timekeeper can. So if it's just a one-off in this case, or you'd have to update and add the pattern like we've shown you, or right now I'm just gonna actually manually add the schedule in. Okay. Well, once you add the schedule in, I'm gonna hit save, and then the employee would re-request, or you could re-request for them. And once you do that, then the schedule will populate correctly. In most cases that we see, it's not necessarily a day, it's that the pattern has been completely removed and never put back in, right? And once you do that, nothing will work right. Like as you said, the holidays won't work right, the time off won't work right. So the timekeeper would need to go in and, like I've showed a couple times now, add a pattern for that a permanent pattern for that employee, and then it will populate correctly. So I'm just gonna re-request. I entered the wrong day. Okay, 7/14. 7/14. I'm gonna review. Vacation Monday, 7/14, 8 o'clock, submit, done. It approves, and tells you vacation 8 to 4. Let me scroll to the time card and you should see it. Yay, it's there. It's perfect. Okay. Yay. So that's how you do it. It is 11:41, and I want to thank everyone for attending. And if anyone has any questions, and even if it's not necessarily about this, since we have some time, I'm happy to show if needed and answer your questions. Um, any questions?
Sandra, I just want to say thank you for going over all of this.
No problem. We're just trying to make it so the holidays populate correctly, maybe make a little bit less work for everybody in the long run. If
Xander,
no one has any questions, I can stop recording. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna ask if you could stop sharing so Meg can
Yep.
put the slides back up for our contact information.
Okay.
Thanks.
So if you have any question, or if you, for contact information, you can see that our time reporting system website is on here. And we also, of course, have it under our TRS info links now on your workspace when you log in. And for time off questions, you can email timeoff@gw.edu, which goes to benefits. And you can always CC me if you want. I always try to answer the questions if I can't. If I think I'm not quite sure because I'm not the subject expert on it, I will forward it to time off. For timekeeping questions and how to actually fix your schedules, things aren't populated, it has nothing, it doesn't necessarily have to do with time off piece. Email time rep and I'll try to answer your question as quickly as possible. Thank you again for joining today. I'll stay on for a little bit longer if you have any questions. Other than that, have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
You're welcome.